Shalom, this is the brother Atazawamia from the GMS South Carolina camp. And first and foremost, I want to give all praises to Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the elders of Great Millstone. And Shalom to all the Akim out there pushing the truth and sincerity. Alright. This lesson, I want to bring out this information, alright, about the bird flu and how Esau, so-called white man, have created this man-made version, alright, and and in these last days, one of the plagues that's going to be sent is pestilence. But first, I'm going to go through these news clippings, and then we're going to get into the scriptures. Alright.
Potentially the most dangerous flu virus that's ever been created in the world.
Dr. Ron Fouché says he created the new man-made virus because, in his words, I wanted to see what was possible. He successfully transferred it to a ferret, a stand-in for humans. Now the government that paid for it wants him to keep the virus a secret, afraid it could become a blueprint for terrorists to launch a global pandemic.
I wish that the work hadn't been done to begin with, but now that we're here, it makes the most sense.
A panel advising the U.S. government is asking two major journals, Science and Nature, to black out details of Fouché's paper. Not all scientists agree.
I'm on the side of publishing the information.
Scientists want to know how the virus mutates and jumps from one species to another, so they can stop it when it does. Some say that doesn't have to mean releasing a recipe for disaster.
What might be held back from publication is the gene sequence of the virus, which might be useful to somebody who really wanted to make a nasty virus in the lab. They'd have to have reasonably sophisticated equipment available.
The journals plan to publish the redacted versions in the next few months.
This marks the first time the government has ever asked scientists not to publish the details of a biomedical experiment. And they're doing it because while bird flu rarely affects people, when it does, it kills at an alarming rate.
In 2009 and 2010, the H1N1 virus left an estimated 12,000 people dead. As scientists debate Fouché's findings, an outbreak of aviary flu in Hong Kong has authorities killing 17,000 chickens. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Washington.
United Nations officials have issued a warning about a possible resurgence of the H5N1 virus, better known as the bird flu. Here's HLN.
It has appeared in Vietnam and China, and it is threatening other Asian countries. The original virus spread through wild birds and poultry. It has killed more than 300 people since 2003 and devastated poultry in some regions.
And CNN explains this time around, the outbreak has the potential to be particularly deadly.
They say a mutant strain of the H5N1 virus has appeared in Vietnam and China. It apparently can bypass the defenses of current vaccines with, quote, unpredictable risks, end quote, to humans. 8 people have reportedly died in Southeast Asia this year after being infected with that bird flu virus.
A writer for UK's The Independent reports migratory birds have made it particularly difficult to prevent the avian flu from spreading across the globe, and the cost has been devastating. At its peak in 2006, it was present in 63 countries, and there were 4,000 outbreaks of the disease in wild birds and poultry. In all, some 400 million domestic poultry were slaughtered, and the disease was said to have cost the world's economies $20 billion, but the spread was halted. And a writer for the LA Times says fighting the flu has been a bit of a one step forward, 2 steps back. 2 years later, it was gone from most, and cases of illness in humans followed suit, dipping to just 302 in 2008. But almost 800 cases of bird flu were recorded in people during the last flu season, and the virus recently spread to Israel and the Palestinian territories, Bulgaria, Romania, Nepal, and Mongolia. But a microbiologist tells the Daily Mail the key is that the mutant strain bypasses current vaccines and commonly used medications, but that, he says, is no different than other viruses. There is no need to panic yet because there is no evidence that the virus is spreading person to person, and there are other antivirals that do have an effect. There's also no evidence that the virus is becoming vaccine resistant. A new vaccine will have to be made, but that is to be expected. Flu is always changing, and it would be staggering if this flu didn't. For Newsy, I'm Megan Murphy, multiple sources, the real story.
The Assad regime cracks down on protesters in Syria. Some scientists here in the U.S. say the government is trying to censor them. The government is asking scientists not to publish details of a bird flu study. They are justifying the censorship by saying it could end up in the hands of terrorists. The fear is that the information would help terrorists use the virus against the American people. The strain H5N1 or the avian bird flu kills 60% of people infected. But while humans can catch it from birds, it doesn't transfer easily from person to person. But scientists did find a strain that is transmitted through the air in their experiments with ferrets. In this case, researchers were deliberately trying to create a deadly superbug to better understand how it mutates in nature. Now the government is asking them to keep the information under wraps. But scientific journals are calling this censorship. Scientists have agreed to print down a watered-down version of the results. But the question remains, is this the latest example of a crackdown on civil liberties over fears of terrorist threats?
You the devil, man. Alright, here's the last news clip before we get into the scriptures.
There was a legitimate scientific question that needed to be asked about whether or not this virus, which has been smoldering in Southeast Asia for years, can it actually attain the characteristics of easy spread while maintaining its virulence or its ability to kill. So it was a legitimate public health question to help people who are in the field doing surveillance to try and find out whether or not this will happen. The results of the experiment came up with a virus that, at least in an animal model, had these characteristics. But when you analyze the results, the decision was made to give the recommendation to publish the conclusions, but to not make the information available to anyone and everyone who wants it, as is traditional in the scientific literature, but to make it available for those people, those scientists, and those public health officials who have a need to know for the public health good.
But can you understand, Dr. Fauci, that by not publishing the full details of this report, this appears to be censorship of important scientific findings?
No, there's a delicate balance that the people who would have a need to know, legitimate scientists, legitimate universities and medical centers, public health officials, will definitely have access to these data. It was an impartial National Science Advisory Board for Biosecurity that made these recommendations. So it isn't as if the information, the details, will not be available to anyone. It will be available to the people who have a need to know, such as the health officials in the countries in which this disease is endemic.
But don't you think, Dr. Fauci, that apart from this information only being made available to certain groups, it should also be made available to the public for us to have the right to know about the consequences of the bird flu disease?
No, what certainly the public has a right to know that, in fact, this virus can attain the characteristics of spreading rapidly and being able to have a high degree of virulence. That fact will be published, but not every single person needs to know how to make a lethal virus. I don't think the general public, particularly if some of them might have nefarious reasons, should have a blueprint or a roadmap about how to make a lethal virus. What the public health officials who need to know and want to do continued research for the public good, they will have access to that information.
All right. And those are the news clips, talking about this bird flu, all right, which they said that they have synthetically made a man-made version of the bird flu, which can be easily transmitted, not from birds but to people, and can have a high death rate. All right. So I'm gonna first get a definition on pestilence, because you know. Pestilence. All right, this is from dictionary.com. All right. All right. Pestilence. All right, it's a noun. It says a deadly or virulent epidemic disease. All right. Scan down because it's moving slow. Something that is considered harmful, destructive, or evil. Pestilence. All right. So we got that. An epidemic outbreak of a deadly and highly infectious disease such as the plague, such as a disease, an evil influence or idea. Right? The word origin and history from the 13th century, from Old French, pestilence from Latin, pestilita, plague, noun of action from pestilence. Alright, infectious, unwholesome, noisome, from pest, deadly, disease, plague. And this is what they created, man. Alright? Just wanted to get the definition on that. Let me go to Jeremiah chapter 28, because if you this message is really for you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, to warn you of the upcoming judgments that the Lord's going to bring on America and all over the world. All right, and for you to get right. All right, this is what the prophets do. This is Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 8. It says, "The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms." All right. Now, many countries, that means the other nations. All right. Everybody outside of the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right. We prophesying against them. All right. And great kingdoms. And is not America a great kingdom? Yes, it is. All right. And we're going to prove that. And we prophesying against it of war, because there will be race wars and third world war, which will lead to the destruction of America, and of evil, meaning bad times, eve meaning time, and ill meaning bad. Alright, and it's gonna be bad times increasing in this upcoming year. Alright, and of pestilence. Alright, get that again, which is pestilence. Any epidemic outbreak of a deadly and highly infectious disease, such as the plague, such as a disease. Alright, and it stems from the word pest, deadly, disease, plague. Alright, and that's where we go out there and we warn you people. Alright, and we cry out telling you that the Lord's going to bring such destruction on this place. Alright, why? This is Amos chapter 9, verse 8. It says, "Behold, the eyes of the Lord God are upon the sinful kingdom." Alright? And America's that sinful kingdom. How is it the sinful kingdom? Alright? Let's find out what sin is. Alright? John chapter 3, verse 4 says, "Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law." That's right. Verse 8. "He that committeth sin is of the devil, For the devil sent him from the beginning. All right, and that's basically speaking about the so-called white man. Because didn't he say that he's a God-believing, God-fearing Christian?